Hey guys, I went through the magazine called Combat Handguns. Just flipping through this magazine right away, I noticed that there was a lot of things involved sociologically. There was gender, race, and social class were very prominent throughout this. Just flipping through by page to page with everything from pictures to articles and the type of culture that was prominent in this magazine. So starting first and foremost, symbolic interactionism sees interaction meaning as central to society and assumes that meanings are not inherent but are created through interaction, meaning we as people shaped and influenced through interactions, ideas and dominant ideologies. Therefore, it's important to deconstruct things such as this magazine because the ideas that we read and are influenced by are in every day-to-day basis, such as mass media like a magazine article or just pictures in general. So just flipping through some of these pictures and everything, you notice here that it just talks about articles of incidences where people were saved by guns or it helped them get through a situation. Also another one here that talks about how the media isn't exactly open-minded to gun use. And then pictures here I just pulled out. This was literally every other page was a white male was shooting the gun. So here's more white males shooting the guns. So definite gender and definite race culture there. And then lastly was showing about like social class. These guns were very expensive, so they were going through and talking about all the different prices. So you would obviously have to be upper class to afford all these different kind of guns. They were ranging all from the lowest one I saw in this magazine on just a small 9mm handgun was about $500 was the lowest model you could buy, and then they talked about all the modifications and everything you could go through on there. So definitely right away, just flipping through, not even really reading into it much or being an avid gun user, I noticed all this just picking up off the few pages. So a couple terms that I attached to this magazine and everything going through was culture, the beliefs, way of life, art, and customs that are shared and accepted by people in a particular society. So the gun culture is definitely portrayed to me as dominant beliefs, like pretty much only men in that magazine. So there's pretty much saying that there is more men that should shoot guns and be participated with guns than even race, white men for that matter, and there's no females really in there. I think I saw maybe one female at the end for an ad on colorful guns like pink ones and whatnot, which is a big social issue as well because a lot of females would be biased about that. And then we have here is cultural imperialism, when a dominant culture is forced upon others cultures, making them invisible. So with cultural imperialism, you could relate that to the gun stories and how all the stories in this article were talking about only the good things that guns are associated with and not any of maybe the bad things or gang relation and violence and stuff like that. They don't really shine light to in these articles. And also just the dominant culture of how the values, norms, and practices of the most powerful groups. Stating that this gun community really excludes others, could be intimidated to any others reading about this community, going through this magazine. I know definitely for me, I'm not very into guns, but I know that this would be a community that maybe wouldn't be as accepting as some other subject or any other community because they are so so stuck in their ways on how just flicking through this magazine and seeing how it's the white male shooting the weapon and very expensive guns. Thomas' theorem states if people define situation as real, they are real in consequences. So obviously going through that as well, the same thing with that dominant culture, how we applied that. So with Thomas' theorem, pretty much stating that how this magazine portrayed the gun culture really defines the situation on what that culture is meaning or what they are about. Going through next was ethnocentrism, the belief in the inherent superiority of one's own ethnic group or culture. Pretty much going through the dominant Western beliefs that white men, upper class men dominate the gun culture. Going through just all these articles and everything, it's I noticed pretty much just the white man shooting the weapon there, and with the prices of the weapons as well, portrayed to me of more upper class. And then we have norms, the rules or expectations that determine and regulate appropriate behavior within a culture, group, or society. So the norms are defining what it is to be a man. So they are pretty much, our Western society has defined a man as tough and brute, and you don't see anything else through this magazine that could come off as there's a gay man shooting a weapon. I mean, you obviously don't know that from the magazine, but you don't see pictures of really women handling the weapons and really really stating that it's more of a protector and a tough role to own a weapon. And then lastly, you have saturated self, which is the postmodern individual tends to have a pastiche personality, one that borrows bytes and pieces of identity from whatever sources are available. So people part of the gun culture can draw that in and mimic that in culture, meaning the pastiche personality is more or less a chameleon of what they're exposed to. So if they're exposed to this culture, that's what they are going to portray themselves as in this culture, going off of just this magazine and pictures and articles of what we're given. So going through, more importantly, again, you have Article 1 here that talks about it's regarding an attacker on a person and how having their gun saves their life. So that can go back to our terms that we talked about above, showing obviously that's a good story that comes from it, but they don't put the bad stories in there about the gang member or something that got a hold of a weapon that didn't use it for good, that used it for bad and maybe hurt innocent people, and didn't really talk about the violence portion of that. And then we have this next article explains how the media focuses on the bad of each story, and not that the media is not focusing on the right of these stories and how they are considered self-defense cases. So they're really reiterating here that the law states that we can defend ourselves, and with the license to carry and all that, if we use it in the right way. But then there's always the other side of things where people are talking about, did they use it too aggressively or anything in that way. So that's what the gun culture is defending in their aspect. So they're defending their own culture throughout the magazine. And then back to these pictures, same thing, just all the white males and everything shooting the weapons, carrying them, showing all the different types of weapons, a lot of tactical military stuff in this magazine, and then the prices at the end, breaking them down on from older guns to newer guns. And that is what I got out of combat handguns and going through it and breaking it down sociologically and putting together terms and just talking about gender, race, and social classes that were prominent throughout this. Thank you for listening to my presentation.